Little pigs, let me come in. Not by the hair on your chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. Here's Johnny.
Who in the world hasn't seen this scene? The movie The Shining, the 1980 version, was directed by Stanley Kubrick. It was said that when the writer of the book, Stephen King, saw the movie, he wasn't at all thrilled with the outcome. But over the years, and perhaps since he was able to produce another later version, probably more suited to the inner visions he had in his mind when he wrote the book, The Shining, he is said to have been okay with it. I actually believe that it is quite possibly one of the greatest horror films of all time. What do you think, Nate?
Oh, that is... I mean, I hate to say it, but whenever I see that scene, I gotta laugh just for the simple fact that, I mean, the acting and the dedication to the scene that he was playing, it was believable because it's like I told you before. I mean, when he walks up to the door and he's got that look on his face,
he's walling up.
Yeah, he just looks. I mean, he looks so happy, but you can tell that there's something totally bad about it.
You know, for me as well, I'm a big Stephen King fan. If you guys don't already know, or my friends and what have you. And I love to write as well. But I want to tell you something. Stanley Kubrick is one of my favorite directors. He has such a great vision to take these segmented scenes and to splice them together and just make something that's really incredibly, just so believably horrific. The movie came out in 1980, and we all saw it probably when we were kids and growing up and everything. But revisiting this movie when we're doing this video and everything for our Ghost Show has really inspired us to just really love it even more. Because I tell you, you can look at it from one perspective, being a kid, and then later on, being an adult and seeing the view of the world a little bit differently. You're like, wow. I mean, if we were trapped inside of a hotel, and with your wife and your child, and it's like, and these maddening evil spirits are coming around and going, hey, Jack, I mean, what can you say with all that? I mean, it's just great. But we'll go ahead and continue on the show.
The way I look at it is, I was telling you before too, is you've got to look and compare it. I mean, a lot of people might get mad or not agree with me, but as far as in 1980, when he played the scene as Jack, or as the character Jack, you have as much emotion and everything and acting ability that he put into that. You have to almost kind of equal that to the part that Heath Ledger played as the Joker, because I mean he was totally intense in that movie.
Yeah, that was Heath Ledger unfortunately passed on, and I really enjoyed him and loved him as the character in the Batman The Dark Knight, and just his ability to just translate himself into these characters are just intense. It's just awesome. I mean, what can you say about that? So
Yeah.
it's just beautiful. But
Yeah.
I hope our mic and everything is going good.
Yeah.
Is everything fine? Okay. Continuing on, this isn't just a show about the movie. This show is going to delve into what created the imagination and inspiration within King's awe-inspiring mind.
First, we have to go back in time and get into the mindset of people who lived without the great invention of automobiles.
Well, if you guys can imagine another time in history when an invention like a motorized carriage would be like us having teleportation pods where we could blink to any spot on Earth in the matter of seconds. I mean, it would really be mind-blowing if we could do that, wouldn't it? But that's probably what people felt in the year 1900. If we could bring ourselves to imagine, then maybe we could understand what it may have been like, at the turn of the 20th century. In the late 1890s, a motorized carriage would be the wave of the future. Transportation had been the same for centuries, with the Conestoga wagon and everything, and just with horses and all that. But up until, then, that had been it for transportation. But then an explosion occurred. The internal combustion engine had been discovered along with electricity. Basically, and finally, the steam-driven internal engine. Steam caused Freeland Oscar Stanley the luxury of wealth, but he'd earned it.
Freeland Oscar, or as he was better known as F.O. Stanley, developed the Stanley steamer car. Along with his twin brother Francis in 1897, both brothers were mechanically inclined and both held a passion for invention and design. Prior to opening the Stanley steamer car business, they had designed a photographic process that had sold to George Eastman. They had sold to George Eastman Kodak for a small fortune.
Born in 1849 at Kingfield, Maine, Freeland Oscar Stanley was one of 7 children born to a middle-income farm couple. Freeland and his brother Francis were mechanically inclined and often invented things. They built their first steam-powered automobile in 1897. That's just really amazing.
Yeah.
By 1899, they owned a factory and were producing 10 cars a day, with orders backed up for months.
In 1906, their Stanley steamer set a world speed record for nearly 130 miles per hour. The little contraption weighed only 500 pounds and had a 35-pound two-cylinder engine.
That's just amazing they had that back then.
Yeah.
They sold their car business for $250,000. A fortune then. It's a fortune now. But the new owner didn't understand the business and botched it. The Stanley brothers bought it back for a fraction of what they sold it for, making another fortune in the process. Can you believe that?
In 1903, 3 years prior to breaking the world speed record, F.O. was given the news that he had contracted tuberculosis. He was 54 years old and in poor health. Stanley's doctors told him the dry Rocky Mountain air of Colorado might do him good. They were right. After a 3-month stay in Estes Park, which had a year-round population of 55 and a summer population of 655 in 1903, Stanley had regained his health and fallen in love with the small town.
That's amazing. Estes Park is actually in Colorado. It's a very beautiful place. And Stanley soon began to dream of creating a world-class resort. Estes Park's proximity to the railheads in Line and Loveland made it an ideal location. Stanley could find a way to get visitors up to Estes Park with the use of his famous steam cars. But what was really to set the Stanley Hotel apart from the rest of the retreats in the nation was Stanley's ambitious goal of making his hotel the first all-electric hotel in the country.
That was something.
Oh.
Stanley built the hotel on land that he had purchased from the English Earl Lord Dunraven. Dunraven came to the area in 1872 while on a hunting trip. He built a hunting lodge, cabin, and hotel for his guests and illegally homesteaded up to 15,000 acres in an unsuccessful attempt to create a private hunting preserve. Dunraven was finally run out of the area after trying to swindle folks out of their land and money.